when I started doing bonsai many years ago, don't ask how many years, it may embarrass me. I used to use the jelly molds, you know the jelly molds. I put cement in it and made pots with jelly mold. And those were the pots. In fact, that pot is still on the nursery with a juniper in it. So as I say, bonsai can be as cheap or as expensive as you wish it to be. You can buy these little starter trees for as little as £5, and for £10, including a pot, you get a beautiful bonsai. I'm going to show you how to make these. At the other extreme, we have trees. Don't want to frighten you. They're in excess of £40,000, and people actually pay it. They actually pay it. Just last month, we sold a very expensive tree. You know, there are people, some of my customers, they own Rembrandts and Picassos, so you don't have to ask. You know, this bonsai is just pin money to them. So I'm not talking of that. We have all sorts of people who do bonsai, but it's the pleasure it gives you that matters, isn't it? It's not how much you spend, it's what the pleasure that you get from making it yourself. Okay, so let me start right from the very beginning. And the very beginning really is, how many of you have had a bonsai, the first bonsai? What was your first bonsai? Can someone tell me?
The azalea one.
Okay. Anyone bought it from like a store or a supermarket? What was it?
I think it's a little box.
Chinese elm, that is a common one, okay? And then ficus is another one. I think that is most people's first introduction to bonsai. They're perfectly fine. We sell a lot of them as well. But the branches, again, if you remember my YouTube videos, I always talk about the two-branch principle. The two-branch principle simply means that you wire two branches with one piece of wire. So the one branch acts as the anchor for the other one. Don't try and wire each branch on its own by wrapping it around the trunk. If you use the two-branch principle, you get a much neater finish. So you see how one single piece of wire just straddles the two branches. So I've changed the shape of that tree quite a bit. Okay, so that is basically what the shape of most bonsai are, that S shape. These ficuses, which are mass produced by the million in China, that's also got the S shape. And they would be wired when the things are very thin, like a matchstick. Once it gets thicker than that, it becomes difficult to bend. Now, we're talking of maples. This maple has got a lovely S shape. I'll show you what is underneath there, but they have also been wired when they were very young. You don't have to wire all the trees into an S shape. So that was not wired, this has been wired. Now this is another of these purple colored maples, and this has simply been allowed to grow. This one must be at least 8 years old.
That was a cutting.
Each year you could have grown it about 3 feet and let it grow without chopping it, but with bonsai we always chop it to produce more branches. Nothing has been done except just chopping the top off. And again, if you were simply to put it in a pot, there you are. That is how most bonsai are made. I shouldn't be giving you all these trade secrets, you know. That is all that you need to do. You know, it looks a very credible bonsai. So the pot plays a very important part in all that. We sow a lot of the maples ourselves from seed. You can grow them from cuttings, you can make airlayings, and you can do all sorts. Now, what I'm going to show you now is the most fundamental shape in bonsai, which is what we call our S shape, informal upright shape. And these larches, the larch is a deciduous conifer. That means they lose their leaves in the autumn. And they are very flexible and easy to bend. This doesn't look like a bonsai. By no stretch of imagination would you call that a bonsai. What I'm about to do normally takes me 3 minutes to do. I'm not showing off, but that is how long it should take. And for many years, I never tired of telling this. I used to do quite a lot for Pebble Mill at 1. Those of you who are older will remember that program. I used to go to Birmingham to film it. And they always used to love this, because when I told them that I do this in 3 minutes, they were over the moon. You know, 3 minutes ideal television time. Every minute is precious. So So they said, you know, that's a challenge. You make a bonsai in 3 minutes. And that really is how long it should take to make this simple bonsai. As I said, if I didn't talk so much, I would do it even in quicker time. So that is the piece of wire wrapped up. Now, how do I know what wire to use? This is called 3mm wire. This is 1mm, and then there's 2mm. I've always said that judging the gauge of wire comes with experience, and a lot of it is also common sense. I'm now going to make this into an S shape like that. One twist and I've got that shape, okay? I won't be able to do that shape with this wire, will it? You know, that's too thin. But I wouldn't need 10mm wire. There is wire which is thick as the handle of this. That's for very thick trees. But this wire would do this sort of thickness. Okay, so I've given one twist and I've made that shape. To remind you again what I did, I always like to use the analogy of stirring a pot. You know, you stir the pot that way. This is what you do. You stir the pot, and that's the shape you get. Literally stirring the pot. What a lovely shape that is. And you can do it with most conifers, pines, larches, most conifers you can do it. Some are more pliable than others, but as a rule, they are not difficult to bend. So, we will now wire the branches. Again, it's a two-branch principle. Wire two branches, one piece of wire. Wire this branch. This S shape, by the way, in bonsai terminology is called the informal upright shape, or the informal upright style. All bonsais have different styles, but that's just a way of being able to identify the shape of the tree or the style of the tree. It doesn't mean anything. You can make a bonsai to any style, any shape. Okay, and then see, you can still bend it and twist it in whatever way suits you or you think looks nice. Now these are a bit small and thin, so I will use much thinner wire. I don't need to use that very thick wire. This is now 1mm wire. Some of the very young branches I'm not going to wire, because if they're too young it might damage them. I'll wait for them to get a bit thicker before I do anything. I think one or two of you have done a workshop with us. We run workshops, and in a workshop, this sort of thing you can make 2, 3 or even 4, depending on how fast you work, and you'll get confidence doing it. The main thing is to do it. Unless you do it, you don't get the confidence. But what I'm showing you really is to demonstrate how easy it is to do. And these trees being fairly cheap, you lost nothing by doing that. If you remember some of my videos, I did a video, was it about a year ago, bonsai for free. If you just go around your garden, you'll find little seedlings that the birds have, you know, their droppings, and you get the seedlings growing up. So holly trees, we get a plenty. Oak trees, the squirrels bury the acorns and the oak trees come up. They're all useful for making into bonsai. You can make bonsai from virtually any plant. You will see on our nursery we have a lot of conker trees as well. So it's just a few pieces of wire. You see how the shape has come, you know. So something like this has been changed into this. Now let me just complete the process by putting it in an appropriate pot. You can use a plastic bonsai pot, which probably only costs like £3 or £4, or you can use a ceramic pot costing about £10. At this time of the year, it is getting a bit dangerous to repot the tree, but I can still do it provided I don't cut the roots off. So I'm just going to tie the tree, and I should put mesh, but I'm just doing it to just show you the principle. we like to tie the trees in so that they don't get yanked out accidentally. So if you just tease the roots and put it in a larger pot, you can do that virtually any time of the year. But if you were to cut the roots, then that is best kept for the spring, early spring, around February or March. Once they come into leaf, then you should leave well alone. So there you are, that is what we call a standard bonsai that we make from these simple trees. So that's very, very easy. Okay? Now, what else can I show you? I'll show you something which is a little more complicated. I think most people are very fond of these aces. You see all these maples growing around, they're all aces. And they've got such a range of colors. Some are lime green, some are deep green, some are orange, some are pink. And in spring you get these lovely leaves. And all these leaves have emerged literally in the last 2 weeks. Prior to this, it didn't have a single leaf open. So once it gets bushy like this, what do you do with a tree like this? So if you get a tree which is bushy like this, you still need to keep it under control. As I said, this is only like 2 weeks growth. Can you imagine in the summer, if you didn't prune it, the branches will get that long. All the branches will be that long, so you lose control. So you have to keep it under control. So what we do, again, if you didn't know anything better, simply prune it back to a dome shape or conical shape. It's literally like cutting your hair, not that we are all hairdressers, but that's the analogy. Just cut the ends and keep the shape like this dome shape, because in nature you'll find all the trees are that dome shape or conical shape. So that keeps the tree within bounds. Many people wonder why bonsai stays small. So bonsai stays small for 2 reasons. A bonsai by definition is a tree that is grown in a pot, because without the pot it's not a bonsai. And the pot restricts the vigor of the tree, and that is the main reason why this bonsai stays small. And the other reason why it stays small is that we're constantly pruning the tree. See how much nicer it looks just by pruning the ends. So by pruning it, we keep it within bounds. Like your hedge, if you didn't prune your hedge once or twice a year, it'll be about 3 foot either side. So with bonsai, you have to keep pruning it. Now, this is not the end of story. Okay, it may look reasonably nice, but I know that it's not really perfect. So I need to go in there, create more space between the branches. At the moment you can't see any space between the branches, so I'm going to go in and create space between the different levels of the branches. This is where it can become frightening. If you've not done it before, I think you need to be shown how to do this. But you need to do it, otherwise it's just a bush. And the older the tree gets, the more you have to keep on top of the trees. Otherwise, you will completely lose control and it won't look a bonsai anymore. I've got to take much more out, and for fear of boring you, I will stop in a minute because there is much more. Can you see how much I've thinned it from that very bushy tree? And there's still a little more work to do on that one. Okay, now let's get back to the larch. Now, many of you have seen these forest plantings that we have. And over the years, whenever we show or exhibit bonsai at all sorts of flower shows, different exhibitions, one of the things that attract people most are the forest groups. And the reason being, these forests look very natural. And how do you make a forest? The forest is, in fact, one of the easiest things to make. One of the easiest things to make. Now you must be wondering why I'm cutting these branches short like this. if you go into a forest, you'll find that the trees are growing close together, so they're always like close together, so the branches are not wide apart. So we keep the branches close. I'll just show you what I did earlier on. I found quite a few of these. So instead of having them with the long branches like that, I've pruned them so that they have short branches. So we will put them in a tray that we use for making forests. And for the forest, we always use these shallow oval trays. Now the pot of the tray is like the frame for a picture. Paintings have all sorts of different frames. You can have modern stainless steel or aluminum frames. You can have ornate wooden frames, you know, painted gold and all that sort of thing. So the frame plays a very important role in the overall look of the painting. So in bonsai, the pot plays a very important part of the composition. If you go in our pot shop, you'll see that we have some antique Japanese pots that can cost up to 2,000 pounds for one pot. So there are pots and pots, but these are simple plastic pots. That pot only costs £5, 5 or 7, I can't remember. We have 3 different sizes. So making a forest is really like arranging a bunch of flowers. Some of you who do flower arranging will know that, especially in English or European flower arranging, they have most things arranged in a triangle. So if you were to arrange 3 stems of flowers, you would arrange them like that, 1, 2, 3, like that, and then 5, you put another 2 in there, so you get 3 and 5. In bonsai, you may have heard in the forest groups, they always insist on having odd numbers, but never even numbers. But I have this theory that if you make a forest with more than 7 trees, the eye cannot tell the difference between 7 or 9 or 8. Much of it is superstition, because the Chinese are very superstitious people. Like, you do know that if you go to Japan, have any of you been to Japan or China? They don't have number 4 on the buildings. Even in Canada, where there are a lot of Chinese people, they don't have 13, they don't have 4. 4 is unlucky because 4 spells death or means to die. So 4 is not used. And yet number 8 is the most lucky number for the Chinese, which is 4. So I don't see the logic of that. It's just that part of 8 sounds auspicious because it means having a lot of wealth. So many of these numbers, when it comes to making bonsai, is, I would say, really superstition more than anything else. Now there are how many trees here? 3, 5 trees. Let me put 6 trees and see what happens. Does it make it look worse? I've put 6 trees. There's no difference between 5 or 6. So many of these rules in bonsai, this is what irks me. A lot of people say you mustn't have even numbers because it's wrong. Why is it wrong? If it's right to you, it's okay. I always like telling another story. Back in 1991, I think it was, or 1990, there was a very big bonsai exhibition in Birmingham. And there must have been like 100 exhibits there. And some of the exhibits were these big forest groups. And there was a trident maple group, no taller than this, but in a big pot like that. And I saw 2 club members actually standing in front of it. They must have stood there about 10 minutes. And I just stood behind them to figure out what they were doing, so intently looking at that tree, that forest. They were actually counting the number of trees. So one guy turned around to his friend and said, "This is a rubbish group because it's got 46 trees. You know, he should have 45 or 47. So that is being absolutely ridiculous. So in the bonsai world, you get a few cranks like that. So don't be put off by that. So that is all I do for making a forest. How simple is that? And as it gets mature, the trees will get thicker and more mature. It look really nice. So there you are. There's so many ideas that you can use when you make the bonsai. Now this thing that I made last night from this concrete pot, I was doing a video. These are called accent plantings. when they have exhibitions of bonsai, they usually display it with another nice, like it's just almost like a flower arrangement, except that the plants are growing next to the big bonsai. So again, if you wanted to use your bonsai pots in an imaginative way, you can put little plants like this and it looks nice. It's all about creating beauty. So that is what our bonsai game is all about. So at some point I will take you to the field to show you how we grow our bonsai. Now, you've all been very quiet. Is there anything you want to ask me, or you want to comment or see being made? Don't feel shy.
On the forest one,
Yes?
would you leave the little forest just as it is? You wouldn't wire that or anything? Just leave it.
Yes, you asked a good question, because in a forest, I will show you on some bigger ones. Now, these wires that I put in, I haven't completed it. I would tie it around the tree so they don't escape. I would tie each tree around with this wire, but I don't think you're meaning that. You mean the branches. Yes, you do wire them to make the branches hang down, because trees that are mature have branches that hang down. Why do we wire the branches down rather than let them spring up? With bonsai, you're trying to make trees that look old, and if you ever lifted a log of a branch, wood is very heavy. As branches get older and thicker and bigger, the weight of the branches makes the branches hang down. And because in bonsai we are creating the image of an ancient tree or an old tree, you make the branches hang downwards. Now let me just show you on this one. This is a tree that I have prepared for making the group. You could have left it like that, but to be absolutely meticulous, I should have wired those branches down, and if I wire it down, you will see exactly what I mean. Find the right grade of wire. See the net, I've got this one. I don't think I've put out that video yet, but I made a large cedar forest with very tall cedars, over 1 meter tall. And we did wire all the branches because we wanted to make it look good. So when you are making a forest, you should really wire all the branches down like that rather than let them spring up. But because I'm trying to show you the principle rather than the detail, so each of these trees, if you want it to be perfect, you have to wire them down like that, and then it'll look more authentic. So that is what we do with them. All right, so you're quite right. We do wire the branches down, even with a forest like this. Many of these things, you don't have to. See, these branches are fairly horizontal, so I wouldn't be bothered. But if it's springing up too much, we do wire them down a little bit. All right, funny thing. Most people have a sense of aesthetics. You all know, you all have a dress sense. You have a sense of how to arrange furniture in the home. It's like that, isn't it? A lot of it is common sense. A lot of it is common sense. And it is what you like. If you like a thing, then stick with it. So that is my practical approach. Don't be too bothered about too many rules. You know, you lose the enjoyment of that. And this is from experience. I find that if people impose too much rules on you, you're always trying to follow rules. For what? To please other people? You're not pleasing yourself. Yeah?
I tried a maple forest myself, and the middle trees, there was 5 trees. It was a more mature tree than the other 4. The immature trees died off.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's an issue with
it does
the trees.
I will show you when I pass the nursery. I'll take you for a tour. We have a forest with about 40 or 50 trees. That was imported from Japan in 1992. It costs an arm and a leg. That forest group I wouldn't sell for less than £25,000. And because I've had it so long, it was imported more than 30 years ago. And that forest planting must have been planted after the war, you know, after the Second World War. And because there's so many trees in it, there are more vigorous trees and they sort of strangle the other weaker ones. So that happens. So don't be worried about it. Just replace it with something else. Yeah. The stronger ones will dominate and strangle the thinner ones.